so then in order to find this on very low good. Hey. Okay, so then in order to find this on very low good. Hey. Okay, so then in order to find this okay. 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 So oh, it's nice. So
Is a bit of a long.
yeah, no, that's pretty typical for. Can you plug that large monitor in? And just in case, we'll have that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We'll have that stream up, but. So. Okay. And then we have the HDMI.
I need to get it too. Is a bit of a long.
Yeah, no, that's pretty typical for. Can you plug that large monitor in? And just in case, we'll have that.
Oh, okay.
We'll have that stream up, but. So. Okay. And then we have the HDMI.
I need to get it too.
had. This was CPU. Oh yeah, that's it. Okay, so we just have to look at it.
Yes. No, that's already connected.
Yeah.
Could it be possible to watch the stream from another?
I think it depends how many students we have, because I need them to go through the other video first. The other video first. This is not the other video first. It's fine. There's. Okay, that's more useful for now. And then we can try. We might try it on the headsets if they're small.
So it was just a CPU thing?
Yeah, that's my guess. Is that the YouTube app was. Yeah, so probably what we can do is maybe we can switch over to the other one later. I don't think we have, because I don't think this machine has any controls set up right now, so. Yeah, no, I don't think we can do it. But that's okay. Because I think the groups of students I think there's 10 students. So it's more important for them to first see this other experience.
Okay. About 7 seconds.
Yeah, that's it. It used to be the YouTube streaming was more like 30 seconds. So this is already. They've been lowering the latency pretty regularly. So it's pretty good now, I think. Let's actually have 10 chairs. 1, 2, 6,
8.
So
So we need
just-
2 minutes.
Thanks for helping with this. I know it was last minute. This is some of this, I mean, not specifically this, but this kind of stuff will be starting for the Institute.
Oh, great.
It's not so much with VR, but
Yeah. Oh, but it was good for me.
it's a whole other world of stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, I'm kind of the more stuff I can try out and
Yeah.
sort of see and help both form my opinions, but also help the kind of places one can then go to in future. Having said, oh, I've had experience with this, I kind of prefer that to just.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sorry we didn't talk more about this before. I thought there was a kind of direct path to the headset on the machine, but
This is a good one.
But, yeah, we had done a bunch of YouTube live streaming before, so I was more familiar with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Hello.
They requested to do the computer first.
Okay, come on in, grab a seat in the center, and we'll kind of give you an introduction and then start. But they want to do
No more. Okay.
What? How's it going? Just grab a seat in the center and then we'll start in a little bit.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. This is our first event. Okay. Nice to meet you guys. My name's Jeff. I'm a professor in the theater department, but my focus is actually on new technology in storytelling. This is Simeon, who works in our lab. And we have been asked to share a little bit about virtual reality with you and talk about virtual reality storytelling. And so I thought the best way to do that was kind of to see something in VR first, and also look at a VR camera, and then we'll talk a bit at the end. So have any of you done like VR or tried something in a headset before or something? Okay, so this is stuff you already know pretty well? Okay, so we'll get started, and then we'll talk a little bit about what it means to author. So we have 5 stations that we're going to use to show the Justin Lin short film Help as just an example, and so Leslie and Liz are going to get you set up. So there's people who are the first 5 or something? Okay, all right, so grab one of these stations, so one with Leslie, a few others here.
Pointing at y'all. You was in the first one.
And they'll get you set up, and then it's like a 5-minute short. And then
Play Fortnite on that? Over.
God,
Those things are like $1,000 something.
yes, please.
so yeah, this one was a different audio. So for you guys,
Tripping, that's like a gaming PC. It's not an alien one?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
You like this excellent.
so have you guys shot VR before, or shot like 360-degree video?
No, if I did, I would have a whole lot of VR and stuff, but I don't.
Okay. So while they're viewing this film, I wanted to just take a look at this camera and talk a little bit about shooting with it and some of the things that we've done here. So this is a Ryko Theta 5. So it's a 4K 360-degree camera, sort of on the low end of the production side, but it's pretty easy to demonstrate. So what's happening here is this camera is connected to that computer that's running this broadcast studio software that takes the 2 camera feeds from both sides, fuses them together into the image that's on the screen behind Simeon there, and then that's sent up to YouTube Live. And so then what's being viewed there is the YouTube live stream. And this isn't in a headset, but it's still
You're live. You guys
live view, right? So this is a different view of the same 360-degree stream.
actually live?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you had the URL, you could send this to your friends and family. So this is the nice thing about this camera, and why we like it, is it's an easy way to kind of think about how to shoot for 360 without having to do post-production. So there's like a 7-second lag up to YouTube.
Yeah. Big delay.
Thereabout. Yeah, so it's more or less real time on the screen there. So it's just a little bit of delay to fuse the 2 different camera views together, and then another 7 seconds or so in upload. And so since you guys have seen VR before, I'm curious, like, as you think about writing your own material or writing stuff that might be for, it's Christina, writing for 360, what would be different? Like, what would be the kinds of things that you think would be interesting to shoot this way instead of shoot traditionally, or what the differences are? That's basically the types of things we explore in classes here for actors or directors or writers. Like, so what do you guys think?
Texture would be really different.
Texture and what? Yeah.
Because, 3D movies give you a whole different feel, but once you actually almost put into that movie, it gives you a different feel of it, and I think A lot of people love it.
More sort of like like environmental
Yeah.
in a way. Yeah.
Different POV.
Different POV. How so?
Because like you're looking at it in first person instead of third person. Like when you're not really doing it, but like you're just watching it from first person point of view.
In these, it feels that way a lot, right? Because in the like in this, when you're shooting with cinematic VR, it's like you're moving the person around as if they are the camera, right? And they're making those changes as they go. It's a little. So when you watch this other film, the difference in technique is that that's mixture of computer generated and then recorded material, and he's moving the camera in these really significant ways, like taking you up and over the scene and then back down and in, and so it's still point of view, but it's a little less first person because somebody's dragging you around. But yeah, I think that's true.
I wish I had my phone. I need my phone right now.
I wish they actually had the VR headset so you could actually walk around. I walk around the neighborhood, so you could carry the beats at VR and the games. You could actually walk around like Halo and all that stuff.
They have, so the one that is, where does it go? The one that's over there, the HTC Vive, that uses these sensors that are around the space, and you can walk around. So you don't get like neighborhood scale, but you could at least get the scale of a room. And so there are people that are looking at how to create experiences that way. Okay, so
Is that
yeah.
a computer? You know,
Sorry?
the computer that you're using.
I don't know anything about it.
You don't know anything?
I'm borrowing somebody else's lab. This is somebody else's lab, so all I know is that they put fast graphics card. I mean, it's
Yeah,
a
that.
workstation with fast graphics card.
You know, like, your computer would never be slow with that. Like,
I almost cried when I saw
like,
that.
you download stuff like.
Yeah, no, it makes a big difference for sort of rendering the video. All right, so I have just a couple more questions about shooting for this. So the other thing that we spend a lot of time on with actors and crew and thinking about shooting 360 video is there's no off-camera. So if you're a writer or you're a director that's thinking about how to make an immersive 360-degree video, one of the things, like, so you start looking here, there's nothing that's off camera. And so everything over, behind it, sorry. Even the stuff below it, the equipment, eventually everybody sees. So there's no like ability to have an off stage. So you have to think about where do you put your crew? How do you change the environment? So you could think about it using lighting, like all the lights going out, something happening, lights coming back up, and then you could cut that in the edit. Or there's people now that put these on robots so they can move them around without having a big crew nearby. So whatever it is that you're actually writing for affects a lot how you think about story, right? Because right now if you're thinking about writing for film or TV, you like make breaks. You guys ready to get on the other?
We'll wait till everybody.
All right, let's wait till that. So as far as like when you're thinking about story, the main thing that we wanted to like share and talk about a little bit when everybody is done is how does the specific type of camera or the specific type of filming affect how you write, right? Affect how you think about the scene. If you can't really cut in the same way, if you have to make sure that there's no crew in the scene, and you don't have a big budget to do CG and kind of remove everybody that's in the scene, how do you actually create? And so I don't know anything about the stories that you guys are writing, but I'm curious if you think any of the things that you're thinking about and writing about you might want to try on this, and what some of the, like how that would change how you think about the storytelling.
I think mine will do.
That was pretty serious.
Mine would do awesome.
What do you guys, can you tell me just a little bit about, if you want, a little bit about what you're
Mine's
guys
sci-fi mostly. It
Okay.
has sci-fi elements in it, so it'll be pretty cool because there is a moment in my story where the main character brings back someone that they love through a mirror and their spirit forms, and that will be like a perfect thing to incorporate. Like the style of camera will be perfect to incorporate in my story.
to sort of put somebody in the middle of that experience?
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually, when you see the end of the Justin Lin piece, it has this like sort of magical moment. It's kind of interesting. What about you?
Well, mine is kind of like a love action killing story.
Okay.
It's basically about two lovers love each other when they're younger and went to this agency that brainwash their mind so they can't actually marry or love anyone. And they try to bring back all together with a rebellion to take up the agencies out and bring peace around the world. Plus, it's in the future, so.
So what would be interesting about shooting in 360 for that?
360 is going to be like kind of like futuristic.
So get people kind of into the world.
Into the world and feel how before and maybe the future is going to be better or worse.
Okay. Yeah. So definitely we'll have to talk after this other piece. And then you wanted to say something too, or about what you're writing about?
I would say it would be kind of scary because like you
Yeah.
get chased by like this half pig, half dude.
Okay. All
It's 10
right.
feet tall, so like that'd be pretty tricky.
It's interesting that you guys have elements of fantasy in each of those, at least in those three stories. And part of what I think is kind of cool about, so this is really realistic, right? So this is about, a lot of people are using these kind of cameras for more documentary work, but when you start combining it with the CG, like computer graphics world, you can have those elements of fantasy kind of feel as if they're part of the environment. And so I think it's pretty good for what you guys are thinking about. Why don't you go ahead and hop on, we'll start getting other people on these, and so we can take two people here, and then go ahead and then get started, and then we'll get everybody else. in.
She already
Did it work?
I know, but I'm just laughing at her.
And you guys saw Justin earlier
That's fine.
this week or last week?
Last week.
Last week, okay. Yeah, so I just thought, sort of stylistically, this was not unlike a big action movie set in the VR context. Yeah, it is. So one of the things that we teach, so I do a class called Acting for Virtual Environments, which used to be acting for camera. So how you teach actors, which I don't know that much about, and they used to use that to kind of teach actors how to work with the camera, how and when to express emotions and relate to the framing of the camera. We sort of updated that class to cover green screen and 360-degree shooting, and so the students go through like 3 weeks of shooting for green screen, where they get used to being in environments that are very different from where they are. A few weeks of shooting for 360-degree photography, and then a couple weeks of shooting for motion capture, where we're tying how their bodies are moving to animated characters. So it's part of the like acting and directing curriculum now every other year. And so we use, this one is really small, so it's really only kind of suitable for classes or really static shots. We've done there are some really nice green screen stages around that are all green, like very large stages that are all green. And those, we've done some similar types of things in. And then the markers in this space, so the ones that are falling down, those allow you to track the position of the camera in the space. So if you have your main kind of camera that you're shooting with, you can put another camera on it looking up, and it uses those to figure out the position of the camera in space. And then when you move that camera, move your live action camera, it moves the background, it moves the computer generated background. So it ties that computer generated background on the green screen to actually the movement of the camera. Otherwise it would just stay still. And so that was the stuff that we were playing around with in this space. All right, why don't we have somebody else up on there? And then there's one more over there.
Oh, maybe this one's not working. I think
Is that,
yeah, there.
which one is not?
This,
Let's see. Oh, you have to stand, because of the vibe, you have to stand further out into the space, I think. is the-
This one, when you find it. Who's your friend?
Oh no! Oh no! Oh, I want to chase that. Oh,
Just keep watching. Yeah, that too.
where'd you go? Take it off. Take it off.
Turn the other way. Oh no, this one's good.
Alright.
Yeah, I see him. He looks like a kaiju from Pacific Rim.
Seriously.
He really do.
Yeah, you should need to
Trying to
Should you like it, sure?
keep watching.
Should you like it?
Oh, no.
You read it.
They feel like he's touching you? No, dude, chill, man. That's when y'all touch my shoulder. Like,
Oh, it said you feel it. You're supposed to feel it.
Peter, chill.
No, you're supposed to feel it.
Like, Peter, like this dude, like, oh, no. No.
Keep looking.
Do you see those big old eyes? He looks like a messed up amphibian. You see that? Shoot him.
No, you can't shoot him. You just have to watch.
You're just watching what's happening.
And I know it's 100%, you know that, right?
Yeah, it's just the point.
Don't watch it until you have it on. I
Yeah.
don't know what's going on. It's
I'm
very
looking
curious.
at him, bro. Wait.
Hey, yo, calm down.
It's just keep watching.
And like, seriously,
You haven't seen it?
calm down.
Because I started.
Oh, man, that Chevelle's messed up.
Real ugly.
Has anybody seen Pacific Rim?
Yeah.
This is the time you need a Jaeger.
I'm not a go.
Oh, no. They'll smack the hell up. Oh, he smacked the bridge. Smacked the crap out of that bridge.
So did Justin, are those real people or they're animated?
A little bit of both, and they're probably done through performance capture, which means
yes.
so it's a these do some they do
But
something
the whole
called volumetric capture where they put cameras all around the space. They have them at the scene and they're capturing them from all directions. In this
You gotta see it. That's for that.
Oh, you're in it.
Be real.
So they're not actually doing a scene, they're just kind of fusing together this 3D model of them.
Alright.
Hey, I want to go.
Okay.
I want to go. I want to go.
Nah, don't shake. Just look like body.
It's okay. We like get out the front side of that.
Don't hop over. Don't
Who is that?
Okay, so if you've seen it already, come join me for just a second and we'll show you the other part while they're looking. You still need to see it?
Oh, you was real ugly.
So while they're doing that, I just want to talk to you a little bit about the live streaming here. And if
I know y'all seen that.
oh, she's still finishing. All right. So this camera is a live 360-degree camera. So the difference between this and what you saw in the Justin Lin film is that that's mostly computer-generated imagery with a little bit of real people. This is actually generating the 3D live stream, 360 live stream that's up there. So this camera feed goes to this machine.
Why are they chasing him?
Here that it's putting together, so this has two cameras, and then it puts those two cameras together into a single image.
Is this your leg?
And then that single image is streamed to YouTube. And
Why aren't they helping?
this is the YouTube stream. And instead of using headsets, we're just using the web viewer to look at it.
Oh, so it's basically capturing like the entire space. You going up with him, turning it around.
I thought it was the
On the live mode, it's capturing the entire space. So there's about a 7-second delay or so. And so this is what the kind of larger versions of these cameras is what they're doing to like do live streams of concerts or things that would be in 360. And so for you guys thinking about writing and creating stories in 3D, either like this time or in the type of 3D that they're looking at, part of the challenge is to figure out what's unique. Like, what do you do differently? So what do you think about shooting with a camera like this versus shooting with a normal camera?
With this camera, because it's like round, so I guess you can shoot like both sides, like the top and the bottom. But with the regular camera, you can only shoot straight,
Right.
one certain position.
And what, do you think it would be better for certain kinds of stories or certain kinds of scenes to see them this way?
I don't know.
I don't know, something to think about, right? Is like what, so maybe things where you really want people to feel immersed and to be able to have to make a choice. do I look at this or do I look at this or right? So there's instead of film is all about controlling where people are looking at any given time. So as a writer, you're always writing what do they see in the film. Here you can write options for people to make choices about what they see. Are they looking at these guys? Are they looking at you? Are they looking over there? So it's a different kind of thinking about where the control is. And then at the same time, you also have this challenge where, like, physically to produce stuff, there's no place to put your crew. They get to see all the lights. So if we look up in this, if we don't do anything. You know, they see the top of the studio, they see everything. So one of the challenges, like thinking about where are you putting the camera, where does the crew go, how much do they see, and a lot of people that are using this are thinking more in terms of immersive theater or immersive experiences at a theme park or something where you're designing everything and not just trying to control the single sort of frame. That affects how you're writing. All right, we'll wait for these guys to finish up, and then we'll talk for a second.
We have one more, though.
But do you have any questions about the cameras or anything else?
Well,
This
I
type.
want to know, like, are these type of cameras like used for special certain things, or do they usually use them for mostly everything, like shooting movies?
So I think people are still trying to figure out what to use them for, but mostly they're using these to shoot things that they want people to experience in VR. Either on the web, like where you have a web browser in 2D and you're moving it around, or you're wearing a headset. So I think these cameras are not typically used for regular films because in the end you don't need all this other information. You don't need to see, you don't need to record what's behind the camera in a regular film. So it's more like people who are experimenting with new types of material. Lots of documentary filmmakers are interested in these because they give you a real kind of specific sense of being somewhere, of like being in an environment. Kind of the way, this isn't really, like if we were doing a documentary of this experience, it's not controlled like a traditional documentary. Well, I know that I want, like actually this shot is going to be of Christine, and then they'll hear me talking in the background. But in this case, right, this is more, we get everything that's happening in the room, and it feels very sort of journalistic, right, in the sense that I can move around, and there I am, right, 7 seconds ago. We get a sense of the environment, and so a lot of the choices that we're making are really just where to set the camera. And is it high or low, or is it who is it near and who's near it? And so I think a lot of people are excited about this for documentary for that reason. But I think in most people's experience, I don't know, you could ask Liz or Leslie if they've seen things, but usually VR work is really short. People have a short attention span for being immersed in something where they can't interact. Although, you know, this is fun to watch. But there aren't a lot of like 15, 30-minute experiences, hour-long experiences, because it gets very sort of isolating. So I don't think there's much use of this, to answer your original question, in like mainstream film. It's more of these new sort of experiments. And so I was, yeah.
With mainstream film, what we do with the camera is we're directing our audience to look at the things that only we want them to look. So to translate this camera is really hard with that mindset, because instead of telling them, hey, look over here, you're like, here's a world, explore it by yourself and you create your own narrative. Whereas with the way we're used to making film, we're sort of just telling you one side, one window of that story.
I think it would be like best if you like did it with like TV show, like animated TV shows, if you could, because that will bring like a liveliness. Like a show that I watched, The Hollow. It's basically a adventure show really, and these three kids with superpowers wake up, and it's basically virtual reality for them. It's a game actually, but if you were able to incorporate the whole 360 view of it, it'll bring the lively to it. It'll bring the freakiness, the scariness of it, the whole mystery of the whole
it kind of puts you in the middle of the experience. And I think so as a director or a cinematographer, how do you think you might control the audience's focus if you don't have the ability to move the camera? Because there are other things that you could do. So what are some possibilities, just from the workshops even that you had?
Signs. You know.
Signs, so things that pull people visually to something. Yeah. So what else? Other things.
Listen, you know, audio.
Sound. So this, it's hard to demonstrate in here. This has a camera that's a microphone that's built in, but there are more sophisticated ways to do sound design for 360-degree experiences, where like when you write a game, you can place sounds in the game, and so as you're moving through it, when you get closer to something, you get closer to that sound. In VR, you can have it so as you turn your head, or in the Vive, as you walk towards something or walk away from it, you're changing what is prominent. You can get people to turn around by having a sound behind them, right? So sound is another way that you can control attention, and as a writer, right, you can kind of suggest how that sound might work in the script when it's relevant to the action. What else? Other ways of controlling attention, because you still want to tell a story.
And express,
right, and kind of like move a plot forward. So yeah, what
I
else?
saw in one VR they had a moth that you followed. So you would that's where you're supposed to look. It was actually kind of guiding you to.
So have even a character, like a quasi-character that guides you, and you know that's like the principal element. There's also light, right? So as a cinematographer, a DP, if we turn off, half of the light in the room, so if I do something like this. So I get most of it. So who's important?
Over there.
Right?
Liz.
Liz, right? Is it Liz and Leslie are important in this scene? And it's going to take a second for it to update here, but it doesn't mean that we still don't get that sort of immersive feeling. You can see it you can see it there until it updates here. Should be happening soon. Right, and so we can draw focus even in this kind of case where everybody can look everywhere. We still have a specific sort of, and I'm not doing a great job of lighting, but right, something that's clearly at least intended to draw attention. So a lot of the existing techniques that we have in theater and film work, they just have to get adapted for how you're going to tell stories in 360 degrees. And so the reason that we wanted to share this with you as part of the workshop here is, as you're thinking about your stories, is not just now, since there's new technologies coming out all the time, it's not just necessarily like, can I get my story on YouTube or can I post it somewhere, but how does the medium that I'm making it for, like if I'm making it for 360 degrees or for VR, change what I can do as a storyteller. So what did you like? What do you think Justin did really well in that short that you saw? Like, what was the most interesting part of that? So
like the audio cues.
How so?
You know, like even though you're looking around, there's like audio cues that are telling you like what's happening out there. You know, like more if you listen closely, you can hear more distinctive sounds that bring your attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like that.
Yeah, so the sound design I thought was really good. What's one more thing, and then I think we'll have to rotate groups. Something else that you thought worked well, or you didn't like even. All right.
Did anyone look where like the characters were pointing? Like maybe you weren't facing where the monster was, but they'd be like, oh look, or like running away from something, so you just kind of like look to see what was happening?
I stared at the monster the whole time.
Yeah. Same here. I'm like, I'm not letting it get to me.
I'm just like, he was ugly.
He does do a good job though of like splitting attention, right? So you almost always have two interesting things to look at: something reacting to something else, or something causing a reaction. And then the last thing, I guess the thing I like is that he has a pretty good use of the camera movement, right? He's like, you're kind of floating and he's moving you through the action without it feeling really super intense. Like the action is intense, but the camera movement is not
Shaky.
intense, which I think is kind of an interesting juxtaposition that he does pretty well. All right, so that's just a taste of stuff to think about. If anybody's interested in following up or wants more information or wants to come and shoot something on the 360-degree camera or something, these guys have my contact information, and we'd, be happy to hear from you. And so it was nice to meet you quickly. And I know it all goes like super quick, but we thought you'd enjoy seeing it. All right. I guess we cycle the next group.
Man, I'm gonna stay in here for the whole day. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are those in the ceiling for? Like the numbers?
So those are used to track the position of the camera for something called virtual production. So usually when you shoot green screen, you're replacing the green screen with a background, but when you move the camera, that background doesn't move. So in virtual production, on the regular camera, you put another camera looking up that knows where it is in the space by looking at because every symbol is unique. It knows where it is from looking at the symbols. And so then when you move the camera in live action, it's moving the computer-generated background in the green screen with it. And so we did a class a couple years ago now, that's why it's all falling down, but a class that incorporated that. Yeah.
Where is the camera, on the back or the front?
For green screen? Both.
It's both?
Or for this?
I don't get it.
You can see the...
For this guy, yeah, this has two cameras. Some of the bigger ones have, 16. And so what it's doing is it's combining those views, it's like stitching those views together into this single view. And then this is what streams to YouTube, and then YouTube kind of wraps it back around a sphere for what you see there.
I just noticed there's a delay to the computer.
A little bit, yeah.
There's almost like half a second delay.
This is always happening?
Or a second delay.
This is always happening like a delay? Or?
Yeah, it's supposed to
run
run smoothly.
This you can do faster, like as you have more and more expensive gear, it goes faster. This stuff, usually to YouTube there is, because if your internet is like fluctuating in speed, then you need to have this delay to like compensate for that fluctuation.
So if you don't have the correct computer, you're gonna have a delay.
Yeah, and there's always like the internet always has variable delay, so it's basically.
That's why I love these computers. Those are like, oh my gosh.
Gaming computers. Come on, guys.
Yes.
All right.
No.
Alright, it takes too long.
What?
Hold on, you want to see. Here it comes.
No, he's gonna do the thing so he can hit y'all.
Yeah, that's why. That's why it's just like.
Hey, I'm gonna teach you something. Look, so I'm gonna have it up here. So like, I can't leave get y'all. So look, you do it like this. You have two on top.
So, what was wrong with the system the other time Ray was saying?
I just restarted it. I think sometimes the hardware, for reasons that I don't really understand, the hardware gets disconnected. This one, I think. The problem is that the Vive is really designed to track in space, and so I think to get it to work, you kind of have to be standing out here, because one of the Vive sensors is there and the other sensor is there. So probably it will work better out here, whereas these use the local sensors.
So they're here for a workshop?
It's a 2-week workshop on storytelling, so it's mostly about writing.
Oh.
And then we just have a couple of additional like little workshops.
Oh, no. They're all high school students,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, high school students from kind of the downtown LA area.
Oh, okay. Oh, great. Still trying this out, man. I think I'll just restart the game.
Did you restart that?
Yes.
Yeah, might be them. Is this somebody's bed?
Oh, yeah, I think they've been out
It
too
might be
long.
one of the students, or one of the TAs, actually.
Oh, okay. Lots of comment.
Hi.
Hello, Mister.
I'm Jeff.
Nice to meet you, Mister.
I will give you explanation.
Hi, Mister. Nice to meet you, Mister.
Hello. This is cool. I want to do one so bad already.
How many more do we have?
One more.
Okay.
Oh, these computers are really cool. They like
Or no,
I know, I
start
like
with
these computers.
them, and then they're gonna come and just do the.
Just can't set them up.
Okay. So we should do. I don't understand. Why are we not just having all of them come?
Because they're working on their stories.
Okay. So.
Hey.
Okay, so we should expect them in like 10 minutes or so. Okay, so we'll do. I guess I'll do the introduction again. So hi everybody. This is good. We have a small group, so this will work well. You guys will get to see everything. My name is Jeff. I teach in the theater department here. You are streaming there. And we're going to talk a little bit today about VR and storytelling for VR. So how many of you have done like a VR experience before?
I haven't, but I watch people do it.
Okay, so we'll do that first and try to give you some experience with just having seen VR, since there are 5 of you. Now you hop on, we're going to take you each to a machine and get you on a headset.
1, 2, 3.
And then we'll talk about what it is.
Okay, get someone over here. Let's go. I'll set it up for you.
And then we can take one more over here. And somebody can, oh, not on that. Okay, so we have to do 4 and then we'll, so who wants to come
Two of
to?
you, one can come here, one can come here.
Actually, why don't you load it on this machine? Just pause the streaming on that.
Yeah, like how she's wearing it. It's just like that.
Yeah.
Not more video.
Not a lot more, but we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about shooting on.
Just watch when it gets bigger.
Okay, so that, you just keep watching. You can drop this.
Shooting that is
Can you see clearly?
You're never looking at it.
Is anything blocking you?
no.
I cannot see shit.
So feel free to look at it.
Oh my god.
Isabel.
Where Bella at?
Isabel.
Oh,
She left.
Isabel. This
I don't know why. It does. Twins.
there is me.
Look at you.
Can you make sure?
That's the story when I
What
was
the
born.
hell is
So
that?
check both over here.
Okay, what is that?
Why are you so big now? You good, Jemiah?
Turn it around.
Back up.
Okay, I can't click on the first small.
Okay, for sure.
She cute.
Hey!
All right.
What do you do?
You ready?
Shoot here.
Oh. So we have one more. Okay. Okay, choose there. When you put it on, make sure that
Oh my
it's
god.
kind of move it around till it's in focus, till the text is.
Okay, that's scary. That's scary. That's scary.
It's Godzilla.
Shoot.
This goes
Okay,
over the
okay.
top of your head.
Yeah.
All right.
Shoot.
So we have one more. Where you go.
Yeah.
Kind
I
of
thought the monster was gonna eat my face off. really thought that was cool. I thought that was cool.
Around till it's
I know, me too. It was getting closer. That's scary. That's scary. Wait, are you going live?
Just a Jason Lynn.
They're going live.
God, Dylan.
Shoot. Okay.
Collaboration with Google's advanced technology folks. So it's a mixture of live action, actors, CG generated. So it's kind of big movie production value. But he does a nice job of creating action that's happening on both sides in most cases, and then moving the environments. So we can talk a little bit at the end about.
I want one.
And then we'll have a lot of.
I'll be watching it. No, me too. It's getting closer. That's scary. That's scary. Wait, are you going live?
Jason Lynn.
They're going live.
God, Dylan.
Shoot. Okay.
Collaboration with Google's advanced technology folks. So it's a mixture.
No.
You're fine.
No. No. See, this is what I mean. No. No.
Yeah, so I think we just don't want to do anything else on this resolution. And then if there's a
You
little
don't
lag,
have
it's
to
okay.
about children.
You don't need the wand.
Oh, wow, it's fantastic.
Oh, you're in a whole other movie now. All right, we should wrap up over here.
What is that? Oh, no.
You found another one. All right.
Oh.
Whoa! All right, come join us in the middle.
How did it so like that?
Did you see the Justin Lin film, and it just went on to this one?
Holy cow.
Yeah, that's the one she's watching at first.
Yeah, I think everybody watched it. Shares this
Come on, Isabel's.
It's crazy.
I feel like I was gonna fall. What the hell?
Join us in the middle.
She called me a white girl. I'm back. Hurry out of here.
All right, come join us in a half circle in the middle for just a second. We'll talk for a bit about.
Why are you so like that? Thank you. Oh, so that's me losing my
All right.
Is that a 3D thingy?
This is a 360 camera. So it is. So yeah. Unfortunately, it still sees you on the camera because it's in 360. So we'll look at it instead. So we wanted you to have just a bit of an experience about kind of new types of storytelling media that are coming after film, after television, and one of the things that we're trying to do here at UCLA is expose students who are actors and directors and writers and designers to new ways of experiencing stories and new ways of shooting them. So we'll talk about this camera and think about how that would impact the story that you're telling. So maybe, I know you're all in the middle of also thinking about stuff that you're writing. And I have a question for you, which is basically, do any of you think your stories would work well in 360 degrees, like what you just saw, and why? So do you want to tell me a little bit about? Tell me a little bit about what you're writing and why you think it would work.
Okay, I am writing a story about a 17-year-old girl who's unhappy because her mother wants her to be just like her and she doesn't want to be anything like her mother. And she's going on new adventures, just breaking all the rules and experiencing stuff.
And why do you think it would work well in 360?
If the person, if you can be the main character, then it'll be a lot of fun, I think, and you'll definitely see a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are trying 360-degree photography for documentary for that reason. It puts you into the middle of an environment. It can give you a very specific point of view. And then in fiction, you can have that person really, their point of view matter, and their choice about where to look makes them really feel like they have some control over the environment. And so in the Justin Lin piece, of course, he's controlling where is the camera, and even though he's not controlling where are you looking, he's got a sound happening over here, something landing in the corner of your eye, and it's pulling your attention from one place to another. But the person still gets to make a choice that they don't make in film, which is where they look. So it gives you, as a writer or director, a way to incorporate the audience in a new way. So let's just look quickly at the camera. So this camera is a 360-degree camera. It's called a Ryko Theta, and it happens to do live streaming, which is why we're using it here. It's a good way to kind of show how it works. And so this camera is connected to a computer here, and it has two lenses, right? So it's shooting this way, and then it's sewing those views together into this one single wraparound image, and that's what gets streamed to YouTube. So what you're seeing up there is just a YouTube player, and instead of doing it in the headset, right, we're doing it in this panoramic viewer, but you could watch it in the headset. So the Justin Lin film is on YouTube too. There's Simeon. Liz. And
yeah.
Is anybody watching it?
I don't know. You'd have to check. I think just me. And so, what do you think so you've seen a little bit of like working with actors, about cinematography. What do you think might be unique about shooting a story with a camera like this? That's all you get. Sorry. What do you think when you shoot with a camera like this? How would it be different than a normal camera?
You get to like.
Just ignore the person behind the curtain.
You see the whole picture,
Yeah.
You see the whole environment, and so what does that mean as a filmmaker? Like, what would you have to figure out?
You get to put people in the perspective of your main character or any character.
Yeah.
And you get to actually experience what they see and how they feel.
Yeah.
And like in that moment.
So they get a really strong sense of point of view. Where do you put your crew?
That's what I was going to say. Isn't it like harder to do that? Because like, you need...
There's a lot of things that there's a reason people are mostly making shorts. One of them is that you don't get as many tricks of the filmmaking trade. Like so if we look up here, right, since this studio is the way that it is, there's our ceiling with our lights. And if we look down, in this case, we would see the tripod, right? And so you get this kind of trade-off between really being able to put people in the scene, but then having to think in a whole new way about how you create the scene. Because usually behind the camera, when you're shooting a film, there's all kinds of stuff happening. Or the wall, like the green screen wall, ends. And here you have to actually create a full environment. And it's almost more like staging an immersive piece of theater around the camera. So it's a whole different set of techniques. How could you, let's say you were directing, or you were even thinking about just the way you would lay out a space as a writer, kind of how you would describe space, how could you control people's attention if they see everything? How could you draw their focus? The same way the camera kind of might choose to focus on Leslie, right? So even though maybe at some point we were over here, we panned over and focused on Leslie or on some detail of the scene, how would you control focus from a camera like this? What do you have creatively that you can do?
That's a hard one.
Oh, okay.
Right, so one thing is light and the way that you arrange the space. So as a cinematographer or a production designer working in 360, you might think a lot more about or think in a new way about how you could use light to create focus. Here I did something really simple, which is just have you guys in light, and then as we turn around, the rest of us are darker and darker. You could use sound, right? So you could, the way, I think Justin does it pretty effectively in that film, right? So there's different sounds that are cueing you to, oh, something is over here that I should pay attention to, or there's a reaction. Somebody reacts looking behind you, and you know there's a monster, there's something new. And so there's all these elements of blocking, of lighting, of sound that are used to control focus creatively in a way that's different than what you would do in normal cinematography or normal filmmaking. And so that's one of the things I think that people are starting to discover is what does it mean to act for 360-degree camera, for example. So does anybody else have some idea about how the stories that you're working on might fit in a, yeah, that'd be great, that might fit in VR in 360 degrees? Or do you feel like film is the right medium to tell a story because of the control you get? Or TV? What are the other stories that you guys are telling?
Can we just say it?
If you want, yeah.
Well, my story involves a little girl. She changes schools constantly, and she's going to this one specific school, and her past from there, she's barely going to 3rd grade. So when she went to 1st grade, 2nd grade, kindergarten, pre-K, she was everybody's friends. So therefore, when she went to 3rd grade, instead of everybody becoming her friend, instead of her having good relationships, everybody hates her.
Okay.
So so there's like, you don't see stuff going on outside, but you can see stuff that's going inside in her, and therefore her heart is just pure beauty, and it's a symbol of hope. But
So you see on screen some of what's
Yeah.
inside of her, okay.
Yeah, but ever since these negative people have been coming into her life and telling her stuff, like, all of a sudden there's darkness slowly spreading around her pure heart, and therefore, like, it forms into a dark mask, and it's trying to cover her heart, and therefore when it succeeds, she's blank, she's nothing. And basically the story is about her trying to overcome the darkness taking over her, and she's trying to trying to win this battle of not just with herself, but trying to find herself. So that's my story.
Okay, that's great. And it sounds very visual in the way that you're thinking about how it's told, right? It's something you can kind of imagine a little bit how it would be on screen. Can you see like a way that you would you try it in 360 degree, or is it more something where you like the idea of being able to direct the focus?
I would try it on this, but I would try just to see how it would like turn out, and honestly I feel like it would in some sort of way, because then you'll get to see like how the dark figure moves, or like get a sense of how this person is feeling, or there's specific areas that tell you like that not tell you but give you a reason to like question why am I here. So yeah, it could be a mystery that I could do. So
Yeah, it might be interesting. And if there's some of it that's from a first-person perspective, I was kind of, as you were describing it, thinking that you could even sort of see around you, see some of what you're describing around you from all directions in a way that might be really interesting, right? Where you can kind of, and maybe it's even evolving over time where something behind her is darker and moving forwards. Okay. Any other, I don't know how we are on time, or?
Probably wrap up.
Okay. Anybody else have ideas or questions about maybe shooting in 360, or something you saw in Justin's film that was interesting or you had a question about?
This is cool.
All right, cool. The other thing just to think about, like creatively, in the film that you saw from Justin, right, it had essentially computer graphics used to create the scene, and then the people that were in it were live action, right? And so something to think about in the back of your heads are there techniques that people have in Hollywood and in the entertainment industry to shoot actors in 360 degrees. So they put cameras instead of in the middle. They put cameras all around the outside, and then they shoot what's called a volumetric image. So it's like the volume of the person, the whole volume of the person. And so then you can take their acting, take that little performance that those actors do and put them in a 3D environment. So you can look around them or over them or on top of them or be closer to them. And so there's all these other techniques that are now starting to put the real world together of live actors. So if you like the idea of real actors doing your work, but you like the kind of fantasy that comes with a game world or the ability to create a really fantastic visual world, you can put those things together. And that's an example of that is in the short film that we saw that Justin did. So we just wanted you to have a taste of these things and think about them as potential venues for you to see your stories in. So, thank you. Yeah, thanks. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're gonna head back.
Thanks, Liz.
I just didn't quite understand. I got confused,
Okay. It's okay.
Yeah, no.
You're awesome.
Yeah, so that's yours, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think
okay.
it's the students.
Oh, it's a student? Oh, 'cause
This
we
is
were
not your
wondering.
guys', yeah?
It's not, so, okay.
Hi guys.
Alright,
Is this
thank
somebody's phone though? Is that yours?
you. Probably. Is cracked? Samsung?
All right. Cool. Let's shut stuff down.
Okay.
And go ahead and shut the machines down. So the these 4 machines,
Yeah.
these are the ones that we're going to move.
Oh,
The
okay.
white ones are going to
Free.
stay here.
Oh, okay.
And we're going to go ahead and move the headsets and everything with them in case we want to be able to do
So good. Down.